So after starting some campfires and some fires in the fire ring in the backyard for the kids, I recently ran out of fire starters. I keep fire starters in a container in my pack that I keep in the truck, and I'm out. What I usually use are cotton balls soaked in petroleum jelly. That's what I've used for a very long time. They work really well. But recently I was talking to a friend of mine, and he suggested that I try cotton balls soaked in paraffin. So we're going to try those. We're going to put both of them, make both of them. I'll show you how I make them. And we're going to do an A/B test. See which one burns longer, see which one burns hotter. As far as I'm concerned, the fire starters that you can buy in the sporting goods stores and Walmart and that sort of thing, from my perspective, they're junk. They're hard to start. They burn for a fairly long time, but they don't burn particularly hot. I prefer to make my own, so I'm going to show you how to make these two types, and we're going to do an A/B test, see which one works best. So I've got a hot plate here in the shop. I'm going to set it up on medium. You could certainly do this on the stove. And I use these old cans, you know, vegetable cans, what have you, in the shop quite a bit. They're just convenient. Use them until they're too disgusting to use anymore, and then I pitch them. Kind of disposable little pots. So what I'm doing here, and this is my first test with this new hot plate, so we'll see how it works. I can tell you it's getting very hot very quickly. But we're just going to put some petroleum jelly in the can, get it hot, get it melted. You don't need to sit here and wait while it happens, but we're just going to dump a bunch of this in and let it melt. Okay, so this isn't brain surgery. The petroleum jelly is melted. At this point, all you do is drop some cotton balls in here. Let them soak up the petroleum jelly. Let them soak it up good though, because that petroleum jelly is what's burning. Essentially the cotton ball is just acting as a wick to hold the petroleum jelly and to let it spread out, to give it a lot of surface area. When you go to light them, I'll show you how to do that. And what you're burning isn't really the cotton until the very end. What you're burning is the petroleum jelly. So let them soak that up good. Okay, they've been in there for a couple of minutes now. That's probably good. Now we're just going to pull them out. Careful not to get the petroleum jelly on the burner any more than you have to. And just set them out on some aluminum foil to dry. Dry is not the right word. To harden. To set up. Okay, so we've got all of our cotton balls here. Like I said, this is not brain surgery. But we've got all of our cotton balls here, and it's time to package them up. They're, for the most part, cool. These are completely cool. By the time I get to these, they'll be cool as well. One product I've found recently that I like a lot are these small threaded lid stainless steel containers. I found them on Amazon. I'll put a link in the show notes. They're a little pricey, but man, they are fantastic. They're pretty heavy. Like I said, they're threaded. I don't believe they're waterproof. I haven't tested that yet. Maybe I should do that. But they are really handy. They're made out of stainless steel. They're perfect for this kind of thing. For the ones that I keep in my bag, I don't need a lot of them. And I don't need to take up a lot of space storing a lot of them. So I just take about 5 or 6 of these, put them in a container, thread it up, and we're good to go. Okay, so now we're getting ready to do the paraffin ones. Now I've never done this before. I've never used paraffin for this. The only time I've really used wax in any of my projects is when I'm inoculating. I've used cheese wax whenever I'm inoculating logs with mushroom spawn. So let's get something to cut this with, and we'll see. I think it's going to take a little longer to melt than the petroleum jelly does. We'll see what this is like. Well, my assumption was correct. I didn't have a timer on this or anything, but it probably took about 15 minutes for the paraffin to melt. So this is definitely a more time-consuming method. It definitely consumes more energy. I mean, not enough to matter. What are we talking about? Probably a dime worth of electricity. So not a big factor in your decision making, but it's definitely more time. So let's drop a couple of these in here. Let them get some heat back on here. Let them soak up some paraffin and see how this works. Obviously you've got to let enough drain off to not spill it when you take it off of the burner. But again, the same thing with the petroleum jelly. It's the wax that's going to burn. So you don't want so much of it to drain out or spill off that you're losing your fire starter. Alright, we'll let those set up. We'll bag them up, throw them in a Ziploc, and I don't know, maybe I'll set up and test it tonight. I was going to do that tomorrow, but maybe we'll just get to it tonight. Okay, so we're going to do this inside. It's cold outside, it's raining outside. We're going to do this inside. We're going to have a very small fire. We're going to put it on top of this cinder block, and I think we're going to be safe. That said, I do have a fire extinguisher right here in case things go horribly, horribly wrong. So how do we do this? What we've got here is the petroleum jelly fire starter. What you want to do is break this up. You want fibers sticking out of the mass of petroleum jelly and cotton ball, because those fibers are what are going to catch. So you want to spread it out a little bit. Set it on our block. When I'm camping or when I'm starting a fire in the fire ring, for the benefit of my girls, I use either primitive fire starting or a ferrocerium rod. In this case, we're going to use the ferrocerium rod because primitive fire starts don't work well with fire starters of this type. Right? You're counting on friction and dry material. This is a wet material. It's not going to start with a friction fire. So what I'm going to do is test with the ferrocerium rod, with the striker, and let's see how many times I have to strike this to get it started. Ooh, catch. Oh, almost. Come on now. Okay, there's a couple of times there in between where user error, I got bad strikes. But basically, second, what do you want to call it? Second or third strike, we got the petroleum jelly started with a ferrocerium rod. So we're going to see how long this burns. So let's start our timer. And started. Okay, you can see we're at about 1.5 minutes now. And we're at about 4 minutes. 6 minutes. Okay, at about 7 minutes, 20 seconds, it's starting to gutter and go out. So I can already tell you this is definitely a different type of stuff. It's very hard. It's going to store, I wouldn't say it's going to store harder than the petroleum jelly, but it's certainly going to store differently. So you're not going to be able to shove it down into a container. Also, it's very hard to tear apart. Make that virtually impossible to tear apart. I mean, you could do it. Somehow I don't think this is going to work the same. I'll try to strike it with a ferrocerium rod. Looks to me like I'm probably going to have to pull this piece up, make it a wick, and light it with a lighter. But let's at least give it an opportunity to succeed. Yeah, that's not going to happen. I'm hitting it straight up with the magnesium sparks and no joy. So let's try a lighter. Alright, So we have a flame. This actually may burn longer. I'm not sure it's going to burn hotter. It's certainly not going to burn larger. But let's give it an opportunity. We'll go ahead and start the clock. Well, we're at 2 minutes, and I can already see I'm probably going to have to change some of my assumptions. It's a smaller flame, less intense, but we're 2 minutes in, and it's burned virtually none of it. Here we are at 4 minutes. I can also see same observations as before. It looks like it's going to burn longer. Also a much cleaner flame. Now if you're starting a fire outside, I don't know that that matters, but it's definitely a much cleaner flame. Less smoke, less soot. Okay, as you can see, we're at 8 minutes now. Flame's still going strong. At this point, our petroleum jelly was completely out. Okay, well, it's not out yet, but its usefulness as a fire starter is pretty much over. And I'm glad we had the benefit of time lapse. Otherwise, this would have been the most boring video in the world. We ended up at 14 minutes and 6 seconds before we basically ran out of heat. So to test the heat generation of both of these fire starters, I built a little redneck wire stand here. I'm going to light each of them and put a 1/4 inch piece of steel scrap on the stand over the fire. And then when the fire is guttering, when it's finally lost its heat, I'm going to use a laser thermometer to test the heat of the plate. Okay, so we're at about 14 minutes here. No, I'm sorry, about 13 minutes here. And the temperature of the plate is about, that's not right, 241 degrees. Okay, our plate is back down to room temperature, so why belabor the point? We're going to test the petroleum jelly now for heat production. Okay, so we're getting ready to go out here. The flame is down just the same as it was on the paraffin, and the temperature of our plate is 290 degrees. So I've never done such a complicated, simple video. I really thought going into this that this was going to be just a quick validation of the fact that the petroleum fire starters were superior to the paraffin. But I guess that's why we do these tests, right? So what did we find out? Essentially, I was trying to judge 5 criteria. We've got storability. The edge goes to the petroleum jelly. You can pack them in a container; they remain soft. Obviously, the edge there is to the petroleum jelly. How about startability? Petroleum jelly. You can strike them with a ferrocerium rod, and they start right up, right? No problem. Whereas the paraffin, you have to start with a lighter. You've got to tear off a little piece to act as a wick and start it that way. Clean burning, the edge goes to paraffin. I'm not sure how much that matters to me. That's really a non-issue. I'm starting fires in campgrounds and in primitive camping places and possibly in the fire ring in my backyard. All outdoor spaces. The clean burning just... for the amount of time it's burning, it really doesn't matter. Long burning, paraffin. Burnt for, 14, 15, 16 minutes. Almost twice as long as the petroleum. So the edge there goes to paraffin. Energy output. Now, I'm using a fairly primitive way to test that, but the edge seemed pretty clear to go to petroleum. About, 33% greater than, roughly speaking, than the paraffin. Now, I'm sure there will be physics people that will challenge me in the comments. That's fine. Please put it in the comments. But, you know, from a primitive testing method, the evidence seemed clear that petroleum had the edge. Now, does that matter? Paraffin burns longer, petroleum burns hotter. I think probably in most instances, longer is going to be more important. But frankly, I don't think either of them really matter. If you're finding standing dead wood, you're splitting it down small enough regardless of how small, wet it is. You know, a couple of minutes is going to suffice to dry that out and get a fire started. You know, when you're talking about burn times, even the petroleum was burning 7+ minutes, burning hot for 7+ minutes, and I think that's going to be plenty. That said, I would probably give the slight edge there to paraffin. For my purposes, I'm probably going to put a small tin of both in my bag, right? I really didn't think that was where I was going to end up. I've got the petroleum in one of the stainless steel containers. What I did, even though the paraffin is larger and bulkier and less malleable, all I really did is took an Altoids tin, I pounded them flat with a mallet so that they would fit in the Altoids tin, and I stacked 4 or 5 of them in an Altoids tin, threw it in my bag, good to go. Virtually no weight, virtually no space, done deal. Carry both. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it as informative as I did, frankly. If you enjoy this kind of thing, homesteading, primitive skills, self-sufficiency, please feel free to go down and click the like and also subscribe to the channel. We put videos out regularly, and we post both videos and blogs on our website at selfsufficientpath.com. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. God bless, and we'll see you next time.